This is the card challenge. In a lot of websites, we will see these cards. It has an image on top with some text. You'll usually get 3 of them, and the object is to make them into 3 columns. And then for a medium view, something special, and for the small view, back to a card, but just stacked. So small, medium, large, and we're going to do that with this code. Now over here, the code is pretty straightforward. So we have a wrapping row, and then inside of there we have the card, which also has a wrapper inside of it, and then a container for the image and a container for the text. And we have 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, okay? So we're going to use this. The obvious way to do this is with breakpoints, which we can knock out pretty fast, but there's also a bonus to try it without breakpoints. So if you're just here, pause the video, see if you can think of a way to do it. For now, we're going to carry on, and we're going to start with that row. So the row needs to be all 3 of these side by side. We can do that just with display flex. There they are. It's kind of a weird look. It's not at all what we wanted, but that's okay. We can use a new property called gap to get our spacing in. So there's the spacing. In fact, I suspect we're going to use this in a couple places, so I'm just going to go make a variable called gap 1.5m and change that to $gap. Perfect. Okay. So from here, we have to get at these children and figure out why the image is there. Now you could attach that to the card itself, but because the problem is happening with something that we did in row, the best way to do it is to keep it in the row. And we can do that just by saying, hey, you know what? Go and do something with the children. In fact, let's go and make the children have a flex basis of 30%, which kind of squeezes them. It starts them all at the same size, which is exactly where we want. We have a little bit of extra space in here. So because they all start at the same size, they will also all grow at the same size, which means that if we add a flex grow of 1, then they all grow to the same thing, and we get those really nice columns. We don't have any breakpoints in here yet, so this is going to break like crazy. It's not going to work, right? We can do that using a meaty query. So spell it right, and we're going to use a min width of 750 pixels. There it is. This is a perfect time to ask potential candidates why. Why did you use that measurement? I suspect a lot of them would probably use 768, very traditional tablet size. I use this because I've tried this a few times and I really like this size for this, okay? But now we have, if it's a minimum width, it's going to be 3 columns. When we get small enough, we're back to a single column, which is exactly where we want to be. That's perfect. Moving on, for the smaller ones, right about here, it shouldn't look like this. It should actually look like this, where the image is on the side and the text is on, the image is on one side and the text is on the other side. So in this case, we do want to target the card, just like this. Now it's important, before we get too far, to remember that there's a wrapper in here, right? It goes card, and then there's a wrapper, and then we have the image, okay? And then we have the image and the text. So this wraps everything. And this is what we want to attach our styles to. If you're wondering why this is in here, if we don't have it, the 2 layouts kind of do funky things with the text. So adding an extra element in there just gives us a little bit of extra freedom for our future layout. But for now, we can target the child just like this. Whoops. And again, display flex. So moving back up. Excellent. It's starting to look good, right? It's getting close, hopefully. We're going to add that gap again. Because we made the variable, we can just go and do that. And inside of here, now we have to take care of this. So way over here, we had the image that was doing something. We'll get to this break in a second, don't worry. But we had the image that was growing in the center. Well, now it's shrinking for some reason. Same sort of fix. We go and get the first child, which is the image container, and we set the flex basis. So there's a whole lot of flex on here. 150 pixels, which immediately brings all that into line. Now we can take care of the horizontal spacing. So way down here, vertical spacing, this spacing, it's missing. We could put it on here as a margin bottom of $gap, and that works, but you'll see that it pushes down on the horizontal rule. Not really a good thing to do. In fact, the better thing would be, because this spacing, because the layout is controlled by row, we should just leave it in row. So we can go back up here into row and create another media query, just like this, of max width this time. And the max width is going to be 749 pixels. Why 749? Because if it was 750, then right when this is 750 pixels wide, these styles would be in effect and these styles would be in effect. There would be a clash of styles, potentially. We don't want that. Inside of here, we need to target the child again. So we add that, margin bottom. It's still not quite right. In fact, what we want is we want to target the second two children, or the first two children, whichever you want. In this case, I'm going to go with the second two children. I'm going to use something called the lobotomized owl, which is a star plus star, and I'm going to change this to top. Lobotomized owl comes from Hayden Pickering. I'll be saying his name a few times here, but there it is. So we have, we haven't sorted that. We need a breakpoint, right? We need another media, type it right. And in this case, we only want this layout for the middle. If it's the middle, that suggests that we need a minimum and a maximum. So in here, I'm going to go minimum width. Can't type anymore, 500 pixels. Why 500 pixels? Because I've done this a few times and I like how it looks, okay? Reasons might vary. So long as they have a reason, that's good in my books. This should be 749 pixels again, because it should be one less than this so that we don't get any style clashes. And now, if we move all of this right up into here, just like so, everything should just work. We have this, and then it goes down to this layout, and right about here, where is it? There it is. So we have all three layouts, which is just awesome, with 3 media queries, okay? That's really good. This is nothing but win in my books, okay? A lot of people use media queries. Most people use media queries. There is absolutely nothing wrong with them. They are a little bit heavy-handed for the browser, which is why whenever I try to do CSS, I like to go with something called axiomatic CSS, which is more of a suggestion than a forced way of doing it, right? In fact, what I'll be telling the browser to do is to, when the text doesn't fit next to the image, let it wrap. Or when there is not enough room to have 3 of these side by side, go down to a single column. And we can do that without any sort of media queries. So I'm going to start again and get rid of, I'm not going to get rid of it, I'm going to comment it out, just like so. And we can start again. So again, the row. The row is way out here. I'm going to zoom it back out. And just like this, in fact, a lot of this still comes into play. So I can actually take this and move it up and uncomment it. And it's going to start to do stuff, which is exactly what we want. Now, it's not going to break, right? It's still just going to stay as 3 columns. So we need to change a few things here. And what we need to change is, first, we need to tell it that we want it to wrap. So we can do that by saying, you know what, go ahead and wrap. I'm okay with that. And down here, a little bit of alignment stuff. So now, if there's no room, it's going to start doing its thing. This is not what we wanted. We wanted it to go to a single column, not 2 columns like this. So the way that we fix that is by changing flex basis. So we're going to use something, another thing that Hayden Pickering created called the Holy Albatross. Very weird names, but very useful when you learn how they work. Basically, we add a calc in here. And what we're going to calculate is a number, because flex basis uses a number. The number will either be negative or positive. When it's negative, we're going to show columns. We're going to show the 3 columns. And when it's positive, we're going to do rows, okay? In fact, it's going to be a very big negative number or a very big positive number. And how this works is flex basis cannot be negative. So it just goes to 0 if it's a negative number. It defaults to 0. When it's a really big positive number, it will be bigger than 100%. It can't be bigger than 100%, so it defaults to 100%, okay? And so that's kind of how this works. So we can change this to be our calculation. And we start by deciding where we want to add that breakpoint. But we aren't adding a breakpoint. We're just making a suggestion saying, you know what, I would really like it to change around 40M. Now that doesn't do anything because 40M isn't enough information. In fact, it has to be 40M minus 100%. And now things start to kind of do stuff. This doesn't do enough though. It's still doing the exact same thing. In fact, what we need is 40% or 40M minus 100% times a just ridiculously huge number, okay? And now you're going to see that it very quickly jumps to a single column. Now this here, this little step is because we have a gap and we haven't taken care of that. So right here, we need to subtract that from the width. We just go and get gap again. And now it goes from here down to columns. Or down to a single column. Boom, boom, right? It's beautiful. It is a thing of terrifying beauty. And it just works so well once you understand it. If you go and search online for Holy Albatross, some really good explanations about how that works. But that's our first step. So there we go. The next step is to get that image back over to the side again. For that, we're going to go all the way down to our card. Same sort of thing. Because we're targeting the child, in fact, we can just go and grab all of this and uncomment it again, just like that. Gives us some magic. But inside of here, there are a few little bits that we need to take care of, okay? So again, we want that wrapping, just like this. And you'll notice that there's a rather big gap in here. And that gap is in there because of this gap. We only want the gap to affect horizontal views. So we can get rid of that by adding a 0 in here. And there it goes, nice and clean. The second part of this is making sure that we control our first child and our second child. So our second child is our last child. We can just use the last child selector just like this. And we're going to do something in there. So the first child is going to be fixed. It's going to be a fixed width. This is great for sidebars. except for when they are stacked, in which case we want it to grow all the time, okay? So we take care of that. That's just always going to happen, which is going to break our layout for a second, and that's because we haven't taken care of the text. Now the text, it starts with a flex basis of 0. Whoops, not like that. Come on, do it right. Flex basis 0. There it is. The reason that we start with 0 is because this is fixed, but this cannot be. We're going to make a suggestion here, and we want it to grow as well. In fact, we want it to grow way faster and stronger than the first child. So again, we use that 999. Why can I not type my completions today? Flex, grow 999. There it is. And everything is looking good. We have not accounted for the breakpoint yet. Okay? And we do that with using a minimum width of whatever we want, in this case 60%. So now when there's enough room to be 60% or greater, then the text will be on the side. When that box gets smaller than 60%, it will drive the text down, and because we have flex grow, the image will grow to fill the space, and we have our layouts, okay? So 1, 2, 3, all without any sort of breakpoints. Very cool stuff. If a candidate uses breakpoints, which I suspect will be 99% of the time, that is good enough. There's a lot of opportunity for question about why they picked certain things or how they did certain things. They might use a different selector in here, like not first child, which is possible. They might do it a completely different way. Who knows, right? But if they do magically come up with an axiomatic solution, oh, the conversations you can have. So awesome. So this has been the card challenge. Strongly recommend you give it a try and try to use it, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. If you have any questions, let me know. I definitely want to hear them. Otherwise, I will see you later.